My sister was attacked by the sheriff's sons at a town festival. They had no idea my father was known as the Punisher. This happened in our small town of Millbrook when I was 17 years old. My sister Vanessa was 22, and she'd come home for the summer to help my mom with her bakery. The annual Founders Day festival was the biggest event our town had all year. Vanessa had volunteered to work the face painting booth because she'd always been good at art and liked making kids smile. I was manning the dunking booth across from her when I saw the Crane brothers walk up to her stand around 7 in the evening. There were 3 of them, all sons of Sheriff Hugh Crane, who'd run our county for the past 15 years. The oldest was Wyatt at 24, then Garrett at 22, and the youngest was Levi at 20. Everyone in town knew them as trouble waiting to happen, but nobody ever did anything about it because their father controlled everything from traffic tickets to building permits. Boys will be boys, people would say, whenever they got caught vandalizing property or harassing girls at the high school. Wyatt leaned over Vanessa's table saying something I couldn't hear from my position. She shook her head and pointed to the line of kids waiting for face paint. He grabbed her wrist and pulled her halfway across the table. Garrett and Levi moved to block the view from passersby while Wyatt kept talking close to her face. Vanessa yanked her arm back hard enough that paint supplies scattered across the ground. That's when Wyatt slapped her across the face so hard her head snapped sideways. I jumped out of the dunking booth and ran toward them, but Garrett intercepted me with a hard shove to the chest that sent me sprawling backwards into a cotton candy cart. By the time I scrambled back to my feet, all 3 brothers had Vanessa surrounded and were walking her away from the festival toward the parking lot behind the community center. Nobody was doing anything. People were literally watching and turning away because that's what you did when the sheriff's sons were involved. You looked the other way and pretended you saw nothing. I ran after them, pulling out my phone to call Dad. He answered on the first ring with that calm voice he always used when something was seriously wrong. Tell me what's happening. I gave him the situation in broken sentences while trying to keep the Crane brothers in sight. Get everyone away from that alley. Nobody goes near there. I'm 2 minutes out. He hung up before I could ask what he meant. Deputy Wallace appeared next to me asking what the commotion was about. I told him the Crane brothers had just assaulted my sister and dragged her into the alley. His face went pale and he actually backed away from me. That's a family matter, kid. Best to let them sort it out themselves. His hand was on his radio, but he wasn't calling it in. Just standing there waiting for me to leave so he could pretend nothing happened. The system was designed to protect them and everyone knew it, but nobody talked about it. I ran into the alley anyway and found Vanessa on the ground with her shirt torn and blood running from her nose. Wyatt had her pinned while Garrett held her arms and Levi kept watch at the alley entrance. I charged at them without thinking and Levi caught me with an elbow to the temple that made everything go fuzzy for a second. When my vision cleared, I was on my back with Levi's boot on my chest. Wyatt was laughing and telling Vanessa she should have been nicer when he asked politely. That's when I heard Dad's truck pull up with tires screeching on asphalt. My father walked into that alley like he had all the time in the world. He was wearing his usual jeans and flannel shirt with work boots that had seen better days. Levi's boot came off my chest immediately and all 3 Crane brothers backed away from Vanessa. Wyatt tried to talk his way out by saying it was just a misunderstanding and maybe everyone had too much to drink. Dad didn't say a single word, just looked at each of them for a long moment while Vanessa scrambled over to me. Sheriff Crane showed up 30 seconds later with Deputy Wallace right behind him. The sheriff's face was red and he was already yelling about assault charges before he even reached the alley. Your daughter attacked my boys and now you're threatening them. I've got 6 witnesses who will testify to that. Dad finally spoke and his voice was so quiet I barely heard it. Your sons just assaulted my daughter in front of half the town. The sheriff laughed and said nobody saw anything except his boys defending themselves from a crazy woman. Dad pulled out his phone and held it up showing video footage of the entire attack from multiple angles. The community center had security cameras that covered the alley entrance and some local kid had filmed the whole thing from a second-story window across the street. The sheriff's face went from red to white in about 2 seconds. He started talking about how we could all forget this happened if we just deleted those videos and went home. Dad put his phone away and looked at the sheriff with those dead eyes. Your sons are going to face consequences for what they did. The sheriff stepped closer to Dad and lowered his voice. You better think carefully about what you're doing here. I run this county and I can make your life very difficult. Dad's expression didn't change at all. You have no idea who you're threatening. That's when things got interesting. Sheriff Crane reached for his weapon and Dad moved faster than I'd ever seen anyone move in my life. 1 second the sheriff had his hand on his holster and the next second he was face down on the ground with Dad's knee in his back and his arm twisted at an angle that made me wince. The 3 Crane brothers started forward, but Dad's voice stopped them cold. Take one more step and I break his arm in 3 places before you reach me. They froze. Full story on my channel and linked below.